What is going on, Hawkeye Nation? It is a beautiful Friday morning. It is almost the weekend. Next week's Thanksgiving. And the men's basketball team had a fantastic win last night, beating the number 13 Oregon Ducks. I'm your host, Andrew Wade, and I'm here with another episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes. The Locked On Hawkeyes is the latest addition to the Locked On Sports Network's growing lineup of college podcasts. You can also find me over at Dear Old Gold. You can find all analysis pieces on all things black and yellow at Dear Old Gold, and I am the editor over there. So thank you for joining me today. Like I said, we have a great episode for you this morning for your morning Friday commute, the weekend before Thanksgiving. I know everyone's probably excited. Next week's a short week. I am definitely excited for that. And I'm joining you from a different location today. So if you hear some dog noises in the background or maybe some cars driving by, I'm actually in my cousin's kitchen. I'm down in Arizona, so I won't be at my typical office recording this, so it may sound a little bit different, may have some different noises in the background, and I apologize in advance for that, but that is not going to deter us from having a great episode for you this morning. If you are tuning in for the very first time, make sure to give our last 3 episodes a listen. On Monday's episode, we analyzed the Hawks loss to Northwestern. We gave an overview of how Hawkeye Athletics played this past week, and we discussed the men's 2-0 start. On Tuesday's episode, we devoted our entire episode to football, first discussing the bowl options for Iowa, then recapping the Big Ten West games from the past weekend, and then finally we touched on why the 2019 Hawkeyes may not disappoint us, hopefully. And finally, on Wednesday's episode, we previewed upcoming Hawkeye Athletics. We dug a little bit deeper into the matchup of Iowa versus the number 13 Oregon Ducks, and we did some analysis on Kirk Ferentz's Tuesday media conference, which you do not want to miss. His conference was great, gave us a little bit of insight, and also, I would say, probably ticked us off a little bit with some of what he said. So do not miss those episodes if you haven't tuned in before. Again, I am Andrew Wade, and I'm here with the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. And for today's episode, we have 3 great segments for you to listen to. On segment 1, we're going to be recapping last night's basketball team's win over the number 13 Oregon Ducks. If you did not get a chance to watch it, it was great. Iowa really came out strong from the start and showed what kind of team they're capable of being. On segment 2, we're going to be picking this upcoming weekend's Big Ten games for football. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up with talking a lot more in depth about Iowa versus Illinois and what we expect to happen tomorrow afternoon. Before we jump into those segments, though, make sure you subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts at. And please leave us a review. Let us know what you love about the show. We like to hear from our fans. And you can also follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnIowa. And you can follow me, Andrew Wade, at Wade_Andrew. Would love to hear from you. Would love to have you follow us. We do post a lot of interesting content on our Twitter. We let you know kind of what's coming up on our episodes and gave you any last-minute information. For example, the fact that we weren't going to record a Thursday episode. So you can get some late-breaking news from there and also get some of our analysis as well in advance of seeing the podcast. And we like to post some interesting articles we find around Hawkeye Nation also on there as well. All right, so jumping into segment 1, as I said earlier, Iowa had a fantastic win yesterday. They beat number 13 Oregon 77-66. And again, if you didn't have a background on what this meant for the program or what the Oregon Ducks brought to the table, please tune into Wednesday's episode. We covered all of that there. It was a great episode talking about Oregon's top 3 recruiting class or the fact that they returned a all Pac-12 player from last year. So they definitely have some high expectations. They were anticipated to be the number 1 team in the Pac-12 this year, and Iowa came out strong and beat them 77-66. And honestly, they never really gave Oregon a chance. They took off strong in the first few minutes. I was kind of holding my breath, wondering, are they going to keep this up? Is this actually happening? And then after the first half, where they were winning 39-28, I was like, okay, this is solid. We might still be able to pull this off. And then 10 minutes later in the game, and the Hawks were still up 10 to 15 points, and I actually started believing this could happen. So it's an interesting turn of events considering Iowa struggled for the first 2 games. And struggled's a loose term, right? It's the first 2 games of the season. The idea is that you have an opportunity to warm up against a little bit weaker opponents, and that's exactly what Iowa did. I just was hoping to see them warm up a little bit quicker against the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and the Green Bay Phoenix. Either way, they came out, they won. They are now 3-0, and they have a quality win over a ranked team, which will definitely look good later on in the season when the Hawkeyes are hopefully contending for an NCAA tournament bid. So we'll obviously keep you posted on how the season progresses from there. The leading scorer on the day was Jordan Bohannon. He had 16 points, and he was followed by reserve forward Ryan Kriener, who had 11. Interesting things of note there. Ryan Kriener actually played 17 minutes to Luke Garza's 19, and I believe that was more of a matchup that Fran liked. Oregon has 3 players over 6'9", 2 of them who can stand back and shoot the three, and Kriener's a little bit more versatile in that sense. He's able to pop back, shoot the three. He's able to do some dribbling and driving into the lane. And I think Fran liked that matchup a little better. There were no real foul issues with Garza. He did do a pretty good job of holding his own down low in the post, but Kriener provided some of that versatility that played well in Iowa's favor, obviously. Star forward Tyler Cook also had a great day. He pulled in 10 boards. That was his first double-digit rebound game of the season. Joe Wieskamp struggled from the field a little bit, not to be unexpected for the freshman. He went 1 of 6 from the field. And then also of note is that Connor McCaffrey again played some starter minutes. I believe he had the third or fourth most minutes in the game at 26, doing a lot of the Connor McCaffrey at point, Jordan Bohannon at the shooting guard. And I was really impressed with how well he did overall throughout the game, making plays, getting other Hawkeyes open, but also just how he did against the press towards the end of the second half. So I feel like once Oregon kind of realized we needed to be doing something a little bit different, they changed up their defensive game plan. They were, pressing they were doing full court press from the moment Iowa got the ball inbounds. And Connor McCaffrey, Jordan Bohannon, the whole Hawkeye team actually did a really good job of handling that press. There were no real major issues from it, no big turnovers. They didn't seem flustered. It definitely seemed like it's something they have practiced in the past or just have the experience, how to break that press and able to get open shots. So again, an impressive game for the men's basketball team, getting a win in the semifinal game of the 2K Empire Classic. That means that we have our surprising finals of the 2K Empire Classic coming up tonight. The Iowa Hawkeyes play the University of Connecticut Huskies. The Huskies are coming off another upset victory as well over the number 15 Syracuse Orange, 83-76. This will be a great matchup again. Although UConn's not ranked, they always have a solid basketball program regardless of kind of who's there. They play stifling man-to-man defense, and that'll also be a difficult test for the Hawkeyes. They haven't had that matchup yet. So they're kind of getting the full gamut of different offenses and defenses over the course of the first 4 games before they start getting into some of the meat of their schedule here in the next few weeks. So good experience for an experienced men's basketball team in the Iowa program. And like I said, exciting to see them get a victory. If you want to catch that game, it'll be on tonight. Tip-off is at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, and UConn is favored by about 5 points according to Vegas. So Iowa's not the favorite, but they weren't the favorite yesterday, and they pulled off the awesome victory. So I'll be watching that game. Hopefully you all are as well, and we'll be providing a recap on Monday's episode. For segment 2, we're going to be jumping into the Big Ten games for football, picking a few of those games and letting you know kind of what our thoughts are for you to pick against the spread. But before I pick those weekend's games, I have a message for you, the listener. Because if you're like me, you hate to miss your favorite team play regardless of who they're playing. Or you just hate to miss that really good football game that you don't want to miss. That's where Sling TV comes in. Now I never have to miss a football or a basketball game. And the best part is I no longer have to pay for a bunch of channels I don't even watch with a typical cable package. For just $30 a month, you can get access to ESPN, the Big Ten Network, and more without the hassle of a long-term contract. What's even more exciting is that we have a fantastic offer for you. Locked On listeners can get a free 7-day trial by going to sling.com/lockedon. That's SLING.com/lockedon. Never miss a game again with Sling TV. All right, we are back, and we are going to be giving you our picks for the Big Ten games coming up this weekend. But before we do that, just a reminder, on segment 3 of the show, we're going to be previewing the Iowa versus Illinois game and giving our final prediction on what we can expect to happen tomorrow afternoon. And this weekend, we have a great weekend of games. We're starting to really see the Big Ten kind of come into focus as to where each teams are going to align. And we'll probably be doing an episode here in the next week or so on where we expect each team to go in terms of bowls, or, kind of what we expect for these teams going forward. The first game on the matchup list is Northwestern at Minnesota. And Minnesota is actually getting 3 points at home. Northwestern's coming off a big win over Iowa. Minnesota is also coming off a big win at, playing Purdue last week. They blew out Purdue, a good Purdue team. Now Jeff Brom is actually leaving Purdue and heading to Louisville. So some interesting things there. I think for me personally, this is a trap game for Northwestern. Going to Minnesota, where Minnesota has been a solid team. They beat a strong 8-2 Fresno State team there. They beat Purdue. They played Iowa tough even. But regardless of the fact that Minnesota is getting 3 points, Northwestern is not the kind of team to let a Big Ten West title go to their head. They're going to come out strong and win this game. So I'm picking Northwestern against Minnesota. The next game is Penn State at Rutgers. Rutgers is favored by a ridiculous 26.5 points. The big question here, Penn State has a lot to play for. They're still shooting for, even potentially a CFP bowl. Very, 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 very long shot, but still a chance. They also have the Citrus Bowl in play. Rutgers, as we all know, is absolutely terrible. The only big question I have is whether or not Trace McSorley is healthy. He's been kind of struggling the last 2 games getting the run game going for himself, and that's really a dynamic component of that offense that is being missed. With that being said, Rutgers is never going to be in this game. The only reason why I'm going to say Rutgers can cover the spread is because I feel like Penn State's going to get up by 21 points and take their foot off the gas. So I do think Penn State's going to blow Rutgers out, but I think Rutgers is going to keep it within 26.5 points. The next game is Michigan State at Nebraska. And Nebraska is on a winning streak right now. Or I guess really to say they've won 3 of their last 4 games, which is fantastic considering they lost their first 5 or 6, I want to say 5 games. So Nebraska is actually getting 1.5 points at home. Michigan State, though, is not as strong as the record indicates. They don't know what's going on at quarterback. Brian Lewerke has gotten worse this year. He has 8 touchdowns and only 9 interceptions. I think Nebraska is going to come out. They are motivated now. They want to finish the season strong. I think Scott Frost is going to have his team up, and that Nebraska crowd they're getting excited. It seems like they've completely forgotten the fact that they have no bowl eligibility this year, that they have more than 6 losses, and they have nothing to really play for this season, and they don't care. And I love that. I'm not a big Nebraska fan. In fact, they're probably one of my least favorite teams, but good for them to find some positives in this season. I think they're going to come out and beat Michigan State. Ohio State is playing Maryland. Maryland is favored by, is getting 17 points, so Ohio State is favored by 17. Not a lot to say here. As long as Ohio State can stop Maryland's run game, they'll be in a good spot. I think Ohio State can do that. They're going to be kind of tuning up for the Michigan game the following week, and I think Ohio State's going to win by more than 17. Wisconsin is going to Purdue. The big question here is, will Alex Hornibrook be back? Backup quarterback Jack Cohn has not really been as good as expected. I mean, he's a young quarterback. What's interesting here is Wisconsin is, earlier in the season, we would not have anticipated the spread to be what it is, but Wisconsin is actually getting 6 points. So Purdue is favored by 6 points. I'm not sure what to pick here, especially with Jeff Brom leaving already. In fact, earlier this week on another podcast, I picked Purdue to cover by the 6 points. But with the news that Jeff Brom is leaving, I don't feel like Purdue's going to win this game. I think this is a good opportunity for Wisconsin to come in and win the game, regardless of what the situation is at quarterback. There's so much turmoil, I guess, and within the program at Purdue. So I'm picking Wisconsin to win or at least cover by 6 points. And then we have Indiana at Michigan. Indiana is still in the hunt for bowl eligibility. They're currently sitting at 5-5. Michigan is really probably just using this game as a tune-up before Ohio State. They have one of the best defenses, actually the best defense in the nation. They are third in points, allowing 12.9 points per game, which is fantastic. And Indiana's offense, although doing pretty well, Peyton Ramsey is 34th in the nation in passing yards. They're not going to be able to handle Michigan's strong, stout defense. But Michigan is favored by 27.5 points. Again, Vegas making this a little difficult on us. Not sure what to do with this one. I am going to go with Indiana simply because I feel like Jim Harbaugh does not want to get his team injured. So the sooner he can pull his players and get ready for Ohio State, he's going to do that, right? He's not going to risk any injuries to his star players. So I think Michigan's going to get up by a decent chunk of points, and they're going to pull off the gas. Indiana's going to keep it within 21 to 24 points just because they do have a solid offense. Their defense is improving, but they're not going to be not enough to come back on Michigan. We did skip the Iowa versus Illinois game because that is coming up here on our segment 3. So stay tuned to that because on segment 3 we're going to be talking through Iowa versus Illinois, giving our predictions, talking about the history of the matchup and so on and so forth. So stay tuned for that. All right. We are back with segment 3, and we have a great game this weekend. And by great, I mean Iowa should win this one. It's been a rough few weeks for us Hawkeye fans. They are 0-3 in their last 3 games, going from the possibility of winning or going to the college ball playoffs to having no hope of going to really any truly meaningful bowl games. At this point, we're kind of just sitting there hoping they finish the season strong. It looks like Iowa's probably going to be going to the Red Box Bowl, which isn't a bad bowl by any means, but I think when you have high expectations or high hopes, it definitely can seem a little bit disappointing. Regardless, we always want the Hawks to win. They play Illinois this weekend, and Illinois is currently fighting for bowl eligibility. They are 4-6 this season. So actually kind of surprising. I didn't anticipate them to even win 4 games. I kind of expected them to win around 2 games this year, but they have surpassed my expectations. Good for them, I guess. Regardless, I don't feel like this game is going to be too close of a game for the Hawks as long as they come out focused and ready to go. And it sounds like, with the losing Northwestern last week, a lot of tension has been kind of released from the team, right? There's a lot of expectations. Losing 3 games in a row can be tough. But at the same time, it lets the team kind of play loose. And I feel like Iowa's going to come out and put a whooping on Lovie Smith's team. Over the history of this matchup, surprisingly enough, Illinois actually controls this matchup. They are 38-33-2 in the matchup versus Iowa over the history of their, this game. Except for Kirk is actually 9-3 against Illinois in his recent history. So since Kirk's taken over the program, the Hawks are 9-3 against Illinois. And the big thing here, kind of funny there, the last time Illinois won 9 games was actually 2007. So it's not necessarily that Kirk has been, this fantastic coach, and I do think Kirk is a fantastic coach, but really just Illinois has kind of been a dumpster fire of a team. They really haven't been a team that has to be taken seriously at any point. I mean, if you can remember, how about this? If you're listening to this without looking it up, if you know who Illinois' coach was the last time they won 9 games, I'll try to think of some sort of giveaway to do for you listeners if you get this right. Definitely post that in our review on iTunes. Let us know what you think, or review on Stitcher, Spotify, etc. We'd love to hear kind of what you're thinking. The big matchup for this game is that Illinois is 8th in the nation in rushing yards. They are 5th in the nation in yards per attempt. And Iowa's rush defense outside of the Northwestern game has been fantastic at stopping the run. Against Maryland, another top 15 running team, they held them to 68 yards on 23 attempts. However, I think some recency bias, some issues with us, or at least from my perspective, is Northwestern just torched Iowa's run defense. And although that's kind of concerning, it makes me kind of hold back, be a little skeptical about how Iowa can handle Illinois. I think the first thing to realize with Northwestern's rushing attack is that they exploited a weakness in the defense that Illinois is not going to be able to exploit simply by matter of their scheme. So against Iowa, Northwestern did a great job of spreading out the team and then doing a power run attack from the shotgun, which is something that Iowa obviously couldn't contain. Against Illinois kind of really utilizes more of a triple option, kind of a more deceptive running attack, similar to Maryland with a Georgia Tech feel to it. And Iowa has been great historically handling those teams. It's all about staying true to your position, not breaking containment, and making sure that you are filling your assignment at the time, and you know that the other 10 players are also filling their assignment. So that's kind of the key to this game. If they can stop the run, Iowa will easily win this game. Illinois' defense is nothing to write home about. In their last 3 games, they've given up something like 35, 55, and 31 points. So their defense is definitely a weakness, which is interesting considering Lovie Smith's background is a defensive head coach. The other 2 things that I think will be interesting to see the Hawks kind of pull together, see if they can get it together in this game, is whether or not they can go back to being Iowa, right? So last week they struggled in the rush game. They also have been terrible at punting the ball, and that's not really something we're used to seeing with the Kirk Ferentz team. We're used to seeing them be able to control the end of games with running and be able to flip the field with their punting game, and they haven't been able to close out games with their rushing offense. And in terms of punting, Colton Rassetter is 104th in the nation. That's bad, okay? He is averaging around 35 yards a punt, which is absolutely terrible. He needs to do a better job. He needs to pick it up. Considering he's been in the program for 3 years, I would expect a little bit more from him. But that remains to be seen. It'd be great if he could start flipping the field a little bit better and not putting the defense in a tough position. And then not really a matchup or something that I'm too concerned about, but I just want to see if they get Noah Fant involved. There's been so much talk on this. Kirk made a few comments about it at his press conference, and you can listen to that on Wednesday's episode. But I just don't understand what's going on with this program. How do you not get a potential top 10 draft pick involved? He had 1 catch for 0 yards last game. That is ridiculous. Just some stats to throw at you on that. In the last 4 games, Noah Fant has 0 touchdowns. Iowa is 1-3 in the last 4 games. In the first 7 games, Fant had 6 touchdowns, and Iowa was 6-1. All right, I'm not saying that if Fant gets a touchdown, Iowa will win, but it does have some strong correlation to when Iowa's offense is humming, when they're getting the ball to some of their best players, aka Noah Fant, they do a better job of closing out those games, of winning those big games. And obviously some of it has to do with the matchups, right? The last 3 games were 3 of their toughest games in the schedule, but still, they needed to do a better job of getting Noah Fant involved. Against Northwestern, they were missing 3 of their top corners. Their linebackers are not able to cover Noah Fant. Why were we not getting the ball to him? I could probably talk on this for a while. So I'm going to get off my soapbox. For this game, Illinois, I believe, is getting 16.5 points. So Iowa is favored by 16.5 points at Illinois. I do think Iowa is going to win by more than that, mostly because I feel like the defense is going to completely shut down Illinois' rushing attack. A.J. Bush, Illinois' quarterback, is not a very competent thrower. He's technically a dual threat quarterback, but he's more of a running back who chucks the ball occasionally. I think Iowa's passing defense will be able to exploit that, and they'll be able to stop the run, and Illinois is going to be kind of out of options at that point. Iowa's offensive attack, I don't think, is going to be outstanding, but they'll do the job to get the victory and put about 20 to 30 points on the board. So with that, that is the conclusion of our Friday morning episode. I hope you enjoy this on your commute to work or your commute home from work. And we hope you have a fantastic weekend. We have a lot of exciting sporting events coming up. Check out Wednesday's episode for more information on some of the sporting events with wrestling and women's basketball that are coming up. We have a men's basketball game tonight against UConn. Be sure to watch that. And we have Iowa taking on Illinois tomorrow afternoon, so do not miss that. Our next episode will be coming out at some point on Monday, but likely not going to be ready for your Monday morning commute. Unfortunately, I'm excited. I have an Ironman this weekend, and as much as I would love to get you a podcast for your Monday morning commute, I am not going to be alive after I get done with my Ironman Sunday. I'll be spending basically all day swimming 2.4 miles, biking 112, running 26.2, and then I'll basically be dead to the world and sleeping all the rest of Sunday night. So I'm sorry you cannot get a Monday morning episode, but I hope you understand. We'll have some great content, though, coming at you Monday and Tuesday, hopefully getting some Nebraska experts on the pod to give a little bit more insight to what we can expect from Nebraska, Scott Frost, and freshman phenom Adrian Martinez. And that'll do it for our Friday morning episode. As I said at the very beginning of the podcast, I'm your host, Andrew Wade. You can find me on Twitter at Wade_Andrew, and you are listening to the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, and you can find us on Twitter at Locked On Iowa. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast at, and please, please, please leave us a review. As we begin getting more downloads, we'll start giving some giveaways and some handouts, that kind of thing for different milestones that we will meet as a podcast. And if you're still listening, we have pretty exciting news for you. We have a guest confirmed to be coming on likely the week after Thanksgiving, former Hawkeye wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in Kirk Ferentz' time at Iowa. So you do not want to miss that. I'll give you more details as we get closer to that time about who it is and what episode you can expect him on, but it should be a pretty great episode. I'm excited for it, and hopefully it's the first of many guest appearances from former Hawkeye athletes. So we have some feelers out to a few people. Should be getting a few folks lined up. So with that, thank you so much for joining us on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Have a fantastic day, Hawkeye Nation, and we'll be with you next week.